So in this video, I wanted to briefly talk about the inconsistencies in paper sizes. Here in front of me, I have 5 B5 sized notebooks. And supposedly B5 is a standard size paper. It's set by a standards organization. And you would think all B5 notebooks would be the same size, but you can quite clearly see they're not all the same size. You know, they're generally in the same size range, but they're definitely not the same size, which is really strange because when you buy a B5 notebook, it has a really specific size dimension. It's 176 by 250 millimeters or 6.9 by 9.8 inches. That's like the size it is supposed to be. And a lot of the notebooks will even say that size on there, or they say, you know, something very close to it. This one says 179 by 252. That's pretty close to 176 by 250, but it's not exactly the same, which is kind of amusing because it's a standard. I guess the point is that some companies have some individual thoughts on that standard, and you know, they want to say, hey, look, it's kind of a B5. It's our take on a B5, and if we want to make it a little bit bigger, then we're going to go ahead and do it. At least with paper standards, it's not a legal thing. You could make it the size you want. You're not breaking the law, but there's different interpretations of those standards. For instance, the B5 of this notebook, it may not be the full notebook. It may be the writing area of the paper. If you look at the most extreme example, this B5, the logical paper ring B5, you could see, I'll put it next to this B5, and it absolutely dwarfs it despite the two being the same paper size. But if you open up this logical ring, then you can see that there's a writing area in here. You could probably just make out the bounds there. And if you get the bounds of this writing area, it is basically exactly a B5 size. So in order to accommodate for these rings, which take up a few millimeters, and there's a little bit of kind of margin here, then, you know, it's a B5 here. Is the notebook a B5 size? No, it's clearly quite large or quite a bit bigger, but you can see this inset, this border here, that is what is the B5 size. They even kind of call it out. It says, there's that little kind of corner, and it says B5 182 by 257 millimeters. You could look up the B5 standard. It's not a mystery. It's 176 by 250 millimeters, not 182 by 257. But, you know, if you get an overlay, this B5 on top of this B5, you could see it's a pretty close match. If you get this one, it's basically just a little bit inside that border. So it's more or less exactly what this is. So this is B5 writing area, not a B5 overall area. It's a little quirk, but it's kind of interesting. Here's some other B5s. So we'll get the largest to put it on the bottom here. Keep it in landscape. Here's another B5. This one has rings, but it's a lot smaller. So this one got the rings and put it on a B5 sheet of paper as opposed to having a B5 inset into the larger sheet of paper. Here's another B5. This one is kind of in keeping with that standard B5 size. Again, in keeping with standard B5. And then the campus, which is about B5. Moving away from that real outlier and that logical paper ring, you have these guys. They're about the same size. If I line up the corner, you could see that the green is the smallest, and then these other two, this is called a mark style. This mark style and the campus are right about the same size. And then we have this soft ring. This is from Kikuyo. So yeah, it's a little bit smaller than the campus. I'm talking about maybe 5-6 millimeters on each side. And the campus, we could look at it. They don't have that sort of inset. It's not a margin thing. They just have a slightly larger than standard B5. So yeah, that's just a bunch of B5 notebooks showing some of the inconsistencies and quirks with paper and notebook sizes. Again, it doesn't super matter here, but it is definitely strange to me to get a B5 notebook, hunt down a B5 notebook, have a whole series of videos about B5 notebook, and then have one be just so much larger than another one. Just one of those things, I guess. Thanks for watching.